Adrian Vale broke off our engagement in front of 200 guests while his first love stood beside him in a red silk dress. He called me a misunderstanding, a painful chapter, a person who had confused kindness with love. Then he reached for Celeste Whitmore's hand and expected me, the substitute he had kept for 3 years, to cry hard enough to make him feel merciful. I did not cry. I took off my engagement ring, placed it beside my untouched champagne, and turned my phone slightly so the recording app could catch every word. The room went quiet. In my past life, this was the moment I collapsed. I begged him in front of his mother, his board members, his friends, and the woman he had never stopped loving. I followed him into the rain. I gave him my pride, my savings, my mother's studio, and every last year of my youth. This time, I only looked at him and said, "Thank you for making it public. It saves me the trouble." Adrian's face changed. Celeste's smile froze, and under the table, with one tap, I cancelled the automatic transfer that paid his mother's private medical bills. Adrian Vale broke off our engagement in front of 200 guests while his first love stood beside him in a red silk dress. He called me a misunderstanding, a painful chapter, a person who had confused kindness with love. Then he reached for Celeste Whitmore's hand and expected me, the substitute he had kept for 3 years, to cry hard enough to make him feel merciful. I did not cry. I took off my engagement ring, placed it beside my untouched champagne, and turned my phone slightly so the recording app could catch every word. The Grand Lark Hotel ballroom had never looked so sharp to me. Every chandelier glowed like ice. Every glass reflected my face back at me, calm, pale, almost unfamiliar. The orchestra had stopped between songs. A violinist still held his bow in the air, as if even he had forgotten what came next. Celeste Whitmore stood half a step behind Adrian. That was how she had always stood in his memory too, near enough to be worshipped, far enough to be chased. She was beautiful in the way people wanted first loves to be beautiful: soft brown hair, slim shoulders, eyes bright with practiced pain. Her red silk dress made her look like a wound wrapped in luxury. I knew that dress, in my past life. Adrian's sister had whispered that Celeste wore red because Adrian once said it was his favorite color on her. For 3 years, I had worn beige, cream, pale blue, silver, colors Celeste used to wear in old photographs. I used to tell myself it was coincidence. It had never been coincidence. Adrian's fingers rested around Celeste's wrist, not possessive, protective. That was worse. "Grace," he said, lowering his voice as if kindness could soften public humiliation. I did not want it to happen this way. A laugh almost rose in my throat. In my past life, he had said the same thing. Then I had grabbed his sleeve and asked, "What about our wedding?" He had looked embarrassed, not guilty. Then Celeste had cried. Then everyone had turned on me. Now I looked at the man I had loved with the kind of devotion that made a woman dangerous to herself. Adrian Vale was tall, handsome, controlled. He had the face of a man born to be excused. Dark suit, silver cuff links, expression tired but noble. He was trying to look like a man forced by fate to be cruel. I knew better now. Cruelty was often not a storm. Sometimes it was a man making himself comfortable with your pain. "You did not want it to happen this way?" I asked. Adrian's jaw tightened. He knew my tone. He did not recognize my calm. His mother, Diane Vale, stepped closer. Diamonds flashed at her throat. "Grace, this is not the place." "No," I said, "this is exactly the place." A few guests inhaled. Diane's eyes narrowed. She had always liked me quiet. She called it grace, as if my name had assigned me a role. Adrian spoke again. "Please do not make this harder." Harder for whom? His hand left Celeste's wrist. That was the first sign. Not regret, control returning. "Grace," he said my name as a warning. In the past, that warning would have worked. I would have lowered my eyes, swallowed the words, protected his reputation even while he ruined mine. This time, I picked up the ring between 2 fingers. It was a platinum oval diamond with a hidden engraving inside the band, AV to GM. Always, always, how expensive one lie could be. I placed it on the small cocktail table between us. The sound was tiny, almost delicate, yet it sliced through the ballroom more cleanly than any scream could have. "There," I said, "your misunderstanding has returned the prop." Celeste flinched. Adrian stared at the ring. "Do not call it that." "Why not? It meant something." "To me," I said, "not to you." His mouth closed. I saw the room shift around us. People who had spent 3 years looking through me now looked directly at me. Board members, donors, socialites, family friends. The guests had come for Vale Heritage Group's annual charity gala, a glossy event meant to celebrate generosity, culture, and the engagement everyone thought would become a June wedding. They had not expected a first love to return from Paris. They had not expected the heir to change brides on stage without changing expression. And they definitely had not expected the discarded woman to stand there like she had been waiting for it, but I had been waiting, not in this life, maybe in the last one. I remembered the rain after this dinner. I remembered slipping in the parking garage because I ran after Adrian. I remembered Celeste sobbing into his chest while I held my torn dress and begged him to explain why 3 years could be erased in 3 minutes. I remembered the months after. I remembered paying Diane's private cardiac rehabilitation bills because Adrian said his family accounts were frozen during a shareholder dispute. I remembered saving his company's foundation campaign from collapse while Celeste smiled for interviews as its new artistic director. I remembered giving them everything until I was nothing but an inconvenient witness to their love story. And I remembered the night I died, not dramatically, not beautifully, a wet road, a file of emergency contracts on the passenger seat, Adrian's name flashing on my phone only after I had already missed the turn, a truck horn, white light, then this ballroom again, this exact sentence, Grace, I did not want it to happen this way. I looked at Celeste. Welcome home, I said, her lips parted. Grace, I never wanted to hurt you. In my past life, I believed her. This time, I smiled. Then this will be easy for you. What will? You can take him without taking anything that belongs to me. Adrian's eyes sharpened. That is unnecessary. It is extremely necessary. Grace, we can discuss private matters later. No, Adrian, you made us public. We will keep the tone consistent. A murmur moved through the guests like a breeze through dry paper. Diane stepped in front of him, voice low and sharp. Enough. You are embarrassing yourself. I looked at her. In the past, I called her Mrs. Vale even after she told the wedding planner that cream roses looked better because white roses reminded Adrian of Celeste's graduation bouquet. I sent flowers to her hospital room every Monday. I paid invoices her own son did not open. I listened while she told me women had to be patient with complicated men. Now I saw her clearly. She had not been complicated, she had been expensive. Mrs. Vale, I said, you are right. Embarrassment should be avoided. Her shoulders loosened, almost pleased. Then I unlocked my phone. For example, it would be embarrassing if the private medical account at Westbridge Cardiac Center discovered tomorrow morning that the monthly payment method was no longer valid. Diane's face drained. Adrian went still. What are you talking about? I am talking about the automatic transfer I set up 14 months ago. His voice lowered. This is not the time. It became the time when your mother called me a woman who confused kindness with love. I never said that. Diane snapped. No, Adrian did. I tapped my phone lightly. On record. The silence turned solid. Adrian looked at the phone in my hand for the first time that night. He seemed uncertain. That was the strange thing about men like Adrian. They were prepared for tears. They were prepared for accusations. They were prepared for women to collapse under the weight of being unloved. They were not prepared for documentation. Celeste's gaze flickered to my screen. Grace, she said softly, please. This is becoming ugly. It became ugly before I spoke. Adrian took one step toward me. Give me the phone. The old me would have handed it over. This me tilted my head. No, his nostrils flared. That tiny refusal did more damage than any speech. I could see it in his eyes. He had built our entire relationship around my inability to say no. No to late-night calls. No to emergency transfers. No to changing my schedule. No to wearing my hair up because he once said it suited me. No to dinners where his friends compared me to a woman they thought I did not know. No had always been the locked door inside me. Now it opened outward. I will send your assistant a list tomorrow, I said. Anything of mine in the penthouse will be collected by movers. Anything of yours in my studio will be boxed and delivered. Our home, Adrian said. I looked at him for a long second. Our home. The words tasted almost funny. The penthouse on Mercer had been bought with his name on the deed and my money in the closing account. The kitchen tiles were chosen by Celeste years ago from an old design board Adrian kept in his desk. The second bedroom became his study because he hated my canvases near his documents. The closet still had a locked top shelf where he stored a box of Celeste's letters. Our home. No wonder I had never slept well there. Fine, I said. Your home, my receipts. His expression darkened. Around us, people pretended not to listen and failed. Adrian's father was not present. He had died years before, leaving Adrian a company with old money prestige and new money debt. Vale Heritage Group curated luxury estates, restored historical properties, and ran a charitable foundation that looked better in magazines than on balance sheets. Grace Monroe, the substitute, had quietly built the foundation's public image for 3 years. Grace Monroe, the substitute, had also quietly paid the bills when the Noble family ran short of cash. That ended tonight. Celeste touched Adrian's sleeve. Maybe we should leave. He did not move. His eyes stayed on me. searching for the woman who would break. I gave him nothing. You once told me, he said quietly, that you would always understand me. I died of understanding you. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Adrian blinked, Celeste frowned. Of course they did not understand. I did not explain. Instead, I opened the banking app under the table, selected the scheduled transfer to Westbridge Cardiac Center, and cancelled it. Then I opened the second transfer, the one labeled VHG Emergency Operating Support, and cancelled that too. Then the third, to the private nursing agency Diane preferred because the nurses wore white gloves and never asked who signed the checks. Cancelled. Cancelled. Every tap felt like cutting a thread wrapped around my throat. Diane's phone buzzed first. She glanced down. I watched the notification hit her face like cold water. Payment schedule update. Her eyes flew to mine. You would really do this, she whispered. I held her gaze. I just did. Adrian looked between us. Mother. Diane recovered quickly. Women like her always did in public. Nothing. But her hand shook around her clutch. Celeste noticed. So did Vivian Vale, Adrian's younger sister, who had been standing near the champagne tower with a group of friends. Vivian started toward us, mouth already twisted. Grace, are you seriously causing a scene because Adrian finally chose the woman he actually loves? There it was, finally, the sentence the whole room had been thinking. In my past life, it had broken me. This time, it freed me. Thank you, Vivian, I said. That is the cleanest summary anyone has given tonight. Her smug expression faltered. I lifted my champagne glass, though I did not drink, to clarity. No one toasted back. That was fine. I set the glass down and turned to leave. Adrian caught my wrist, not tightly. He was too controlled for that, but his fingers closed around me in a way that assumed access. I looked down at his hand, then up at him. Let go. He did not. Grace, we need to talk. We did. You announced the conclusion. Not like this. I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only he, Celeste, and perhaps Diane could hear. In my last life, I begged you until my voice broke. You still left. Consider this my apology to myself. His grip loosened. He stared at me with something like unease. I pulled my wrist free. The skin there held the shape of his fingers for a second, then faded. Good. Some marks could fade, others required witnesses, lawyers, and bank statements. I walked through the ballroom while the guests parted. Nobody stopped me. Nobody comforted me. Nobody apologized. But their silence was different now. It was not pity. It was calculation. By the time I reached the hotel lobby, my phone had 17 missed calls, 3 from Diane, 2 from Vivian, 1 from Adrian's assistant, 11 from Adrian. I ignored all of them. Outside, the night air was cold and clean. In my past life, rain had soaked me before I reached the parking garage. Tonight, the sky was clear. My driver, Martin, stood by the curb. He had worked for me before he worked for Adrian. Though everyone forgot that, his eyes moved over my face, my bare finger, the phone buzzing in my hand. Home, Miss Monroe. I looked back through the glass doors. Inside, Adrian stood under the golden ballroom lights, Celeste beside him, his mother speaking sharply into his ear. For 3 years, I had called the penthouse home because Adrian lived there. Now I remembered the narrow brick building in West Village that my mother left me, Monroe Studio, dusty floors, north-facing windows, a tiny office, a locked storage room full of canvases I had not touched since I became Adrian's almost wife. I opened the car door. Not the penthouse, I said. Take me to my studio. As Martin pulled away from the hotel, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Adrian. Do not make decisions while emotional. I almost smiled. Then another message appeared. We will talk tomorrow. Do not cancel anything important before then. I blocked the screen for a moment with my thumb, not because it hurt, because I wanted to feel, fully, the pleasure of not answering. Then Diane's message arrived. Grace, whatever happened tonight, Westbridge must be paid by Monday. Do not be childish. I typed one word. No. I sent it. Then I turned off my shared location. The little blue dot vanished from Adrian's map. For the first time in 3 years, no one in the Vale family knew where I was. The studio smelled like dust, turpentine, and the life I had abandoned. When Martin unlocked the front door, the old alarm beeped twice. I stood in the entryway and listened to the sound echo through the dark. Monroe Studio had been my mother's before it became mine. She had restored book covers, painted private portraits, designed exhibition identities for small museums that could never pay her what she was worth. She had raised me between drying racks and coffee cups, teaching me that an original hand left evidence no copy could fake. I had forgotten that lesson for Adrian. Or maybe I had tried to become proof that loving him could make me original. The lights flickered on, dust lay over the long work tables, a canvas leaned against the wall under a linen cover. My old drafting chair sat by the window like a dog waiting for an owner who never came back. I placed my clutch on the table and finally let my hands shake, not from regret, from withdrawal. Love, when used badly, became a habit. In the body, I had trained myself to listen for Adrian's calls, to measure his silences, to translate his coldness into fatigue, stress, grief, complexity. I had turned every wound into an excuse for him. Now my body did not know what to do with freedom. My phone lit again. Adrian was calling from an unknown number. I watched it ring until it stopped, then it rang again. I powered the phone off. The silence afterward was so complete that I almost cried. Instead, I found a blanket in the storage cabinet, lay down on the old leather sofa, and slept in my evening dress. At dawn, I woke from a dream of tires sliding on wet asphalt for 3 seconds. I did not know which life I was in. Then I saw the studio ceiling, peeling paint, water stain near the vent, morning light alive. I sat up and touched my bare ring finger. Still alive. By 8, I had coffee, a legal pad, and every password I had once stored for Adrian's emergencies. By 9, I had changed them. By 10, I had downloaded 3 years of bank statements. By 11, I had called Marin Park. Marin had been my mother's lawyer first, then mine. In my past life, I had avoided her because I knew she would tell me the truth. This time, when her assistant put me through, Marin did not waste time. Grace, she said, tell me how bad. 3 years of financial entanglement, informal loans, foundation work without a final licensing agreement, a shared residence I helped fund but do not own, medical payments for his mother, and a public broken engagement recorded on my phone. A pause, then Marin said, come in at noon, no questions, only one. Are you still protecting him? I looked at the spreadsheet open on my laptop. Westbridge Cardiac Center, $38,000, private nursing, $72,000, emergency operating support, $240,000, penthouse closing transfer, $300,000, foundation campaign expenses, invoices paid personally because Adrian said reimbursement would be cleaner later. Cleaner, I almost laughed. No, I said, not anymore. Then noon, at 11:30, I arrived at her office in a plain black dress, hair tied back, no makeup except lipstick, not Celeste's soft rose shade, my own deep brown. Marin's office overlooked Bryant Park. It was bright, spare, and terrifyingly organized. She had silver hair cut to her jaw and eyes that made lies undress themselves. She listened without interrupting while I explained the last 3 years, not the whole truth. Not the rebirth. I told her enough. I told her I had loved Adrian, I had helped him, I had paid for things because I thought we were building a life. I had no signed loan agreement for every payment, but I had emails, messages, invoices, transfer notes, and witnesses. I had created the visual identity for Vale Foundation's upcoming Restoration Futures campaign. I had never signed away ownership. Marin took notes. When I finished, she folded her hands. Do you want revenge or recovery? Both, I said. Her mouth almost smiled. Good. Revenge without recovery is expensive theater. Recovery without consequences is unpaid labor. We will aim for both. She asked for access to the documents. I gave it. She asked whether I wanted to pursue immediate repayment, injunctive protection on my creative work, and a formal notice regarding harassment and defamation. Yes, she asked whether I wanted Adrian contacted directly. I thought of his hand around my wrist, his voice telling me not to be emotional, his assumption that I would wait, answer, soften, return, only through you. Marin nodded. Then she asked the one question that cut deepest. Do you want the ring back? I looked at my bare finger. In the past, I had fought for that ring like it contained proof I had been loved. When Celeste wore it later, resized and polished, I had felt something inside me collapse. I had asked Adrian how he could give another woman the ring he chose for me. He had said, it was never about the ring. He had been right, just not in the way he meant. No, I said, but I want the purchase record, insurance appraisal, engraving photo, and any evidence if it is used again. Marin looked at me for 1 second longer, then she wrote it down. Good. By afternoon, my phone was back on and furious. Nina called first. Are you alive? She demanded. Yes. Are you in jail? No. Did you actually dump Adrian Vale in front of his own donors? He dumped me first. That is not what the internet is saying. My hand stilled over the keyboard. What is it saying? Nina exhaled. That Celeste came back. Adrian finally admitted the truth, and you threatened his sick mother over money. Already. Grace, send me everything. Screenshots began filling my phone. There were blurry photos from the gala, Adrian and Celeste under the lights, me standing with the ring in my hand, Diane with one hand to her chest. Captions shaped the story before facts could breathe. Poor Celeste returned after years abroad only to Face the fiancé who would not let go. Grace Monroe reportedly supported Mrs. Vale's care, then withdrew it during an emotional scene. Insiders say Adrian Vale tried to handle the breakup privately, but Grace forced the confrontation. I read them calmly, not because they did not hurt, because I had seen worse in my past life. I had tried to defend myself by posting tearful explanations. Every sentence made me look smaller, every denial fed their version. Celeste never had to call me unstable, other people did it for her this time. I forwarded everything to Marin, then I called Nina. I need you to do something, anything. Do you still know the editor at Civic Frame? Yes. Do not pitch a story, just ask her to preserve any outreach she receives from Vale's PR team or Celeste's people. Nina went quiet. You are not reacting. No. You sound scary. I sound awake. At 4, movers arrived at the penthouse. I did not go with them. Marin advised against it. Martin did. So did Nina, who insisted on video calling me from the elevator. Tell me what to take, she said. The penthouse appeared on my screen. Grey marble, floor-to-ceiling windows. The sofa Adrian chose because Celeste once posted a similar one from Paris. The glass dining table where I had eaten alone more often than with him. The hallway where I had practiced smiling before his family dinners. Nina walked through the living room. Yours. The blue ceramic bowl on the console, the books on the lower shelf, the framed print in the guest room. Guest room? You mean your office? It was never my office. She looked into the camera, her expression softened. I looked away. In the bedroom, my clothes occupied 1/3 of the closet, Celeste's ghost occupied the rest. Not physically, worse, a silk scarf Adrian once said was too bright for me. A perfume he gave me and never noticed I hated. A hairstyle I kept because he once looked startled and said, "You look familiar." Nina packed quickly, then she stopped. Grace, what? There is a box on the top shelf. Locked. I knew the box in my past life. I had opened it after the breakup with shaking hands and found Celeste's letters, photographs, museum tickets, a dried white rose, and one small sketch of Adrian asleep, signed C. I had cried until I vomited this time. I said, "Leave it. Are you sure?" Yes. It was never mine to grieve. At 5:30, Adrian arrived at the penthouse. I knew because Nina's camera shook. His voice came through, cold and controlled. "Why are there movers in my home?" Nina turned the phone downward, but I could still hear. "Grace is collecting her belongings," she said. "Where is she?" "Not here. Tell her to answer my calls." No. A pause. "Nina, this does not concern you." Nina laughed once. "You made it concern 200 guests and half of Manhattan last night." Adrian's voice hardened. "Put her on." I unmuted myself. "I am here." Silence, then quieter. "Grace." It was astonishing how much that voice could still touch, not enough to pull me back. Enough to remind me why leaving had to be surgical. "Do not interfere with the movers," I said. "You should have come yourself." "No, we need to talk like adults. Adults use lawyers when assets are involved." His breathing changed. "Lawyers? Yes, that is ridiculous. So was announcing our breakup beside your first love at a charity gala. Yet here we are." I was overwhelmed. "No, you were prepared." Celeste's seat was beside yours. My name card was removed from the front table before dinner. Your mother knew, Vivian knew, your assistant had a car ready for Celeste. Another silence. In my past life, I had not noticed those details until too late. Now I had memory as evidence, and evidence as armor. Adrian said, "I did not want to humiliate you. But humiliation was acceptable if it made Celeste comfortable. Do not drag her into this." I laughed softly. "She is the center of this." "No, this is about us. There is no us." He went quiet again, then his voice lowered in a way that once made me mistake control for intimacy. "You are angry, I understand, but do not destroy years between us because of one painful night." One painful night. Nina, bless her, turned the camera just enough for me to see him. Adrian stood in the living room with his tie loosened and his hair slightly disordered. He looked tired, handsome, irritated, not devastated. Not yet. I wanted to ask him if he remembered the first time he called me Celeste by accident. I wanted to ask if he remembered my birthday dinner, when he left early because Celeste emailed him from Paris. I wanted to ask if he remembered the night I sat beside his mother's hospital bed while he drank alone in his office under Celeste's old portrait. But questions were another form of begging, so I said, "The movers will finish in an hour. Marin Park will contact you regarding repayment and licensing." His face sharpened. "Repayment? Yes, Grace, I never asked you for those payments as loans. No, you asked as a man who knew I loved him." That hit for 1 second. I saw shame, then pride covered it. "You cannot put a price on everything." I did not. The invoices did. I ended the call, my hands were steady for the first time. I believed they might stay that way that evening. Diane summoned me to dinner, she did not ask. Her text read, "Family dinner, 7. You owe us a civil conversation." I showed it to Marin. Marin said, "Do you want to go?" "No." "Do you need to?" I thought of the future. Diane would frame refusal as guilt. Vivian would leak that I was unstable. Adrian would tell himself I was hiding because I still cared. Celeste would sit in my old chair and let everyone call her gentle. I smiled. Yes, at 7. I walked into the Vale townhouse on East 73rd. The dining room was exactly as I remembered. Long mahogany table, oil portraits, silver candlesticks, white roses. Of course, Celeste sat at Adrian's right, my old seat. Diane sat at the head of the table in pearls and judgment. Vivian lounged beside her, phone in hand. Adrian stood when I entered, almost by instinct, then seemed annoyed at himself for doing it. "Grace," Diane said, "sit." There was one empty chair at the far end. I remained standing. "This will be brief." Vivian snorted, still dramatic. I looked at her, still dependent. Her smile vanished. "Excuse me, you will understand shortly." Adrian rubbed his forehead. "Grace, please." Celeste folded her hands. "Maybe we should all calm down." I turned to her. "You are in my chair, wearing perfume I bought, in a house where my money paid last winter's staff salaries. Calm is not the issue." Her cheeks colored. Diane struck the table with 2 fingers. "Enough. I will not allow you to come into my home and insult a guest. Then do not invite me to be insulted." Diane stood. "You were never family. You were a woman Adrian tried to care for because he felt responsible for your attachment. Do not mistake our courtesy for obligation." There it was, clean, public, usable. I set my phone on the sideboard. Recording. Then I opened my bag and removed a slim folder. Adrian's face changed. "What is that?" "A memory aid." I handed the first page to Diane. She looked down, her expression tightened. I handed one to Vivian, then Adrian. Then, after a pause, "Celeste, I thought we could discuss obligation." The room went still. The first page was a summary of payments, not emotional, not dramatic, just dates, amounts, descriptions, recipients, and source accounts. Diane's Westbridge Care, Vivian's emergency loan. After her failed boutique opening, the townhouse staff arrears, the penthouse closing contribution, foundation campaign expenses. Adrian stared at the paper. "Where did you get this?" "My bank." Vivian's voice rose. "This is private." "My money usually was." Diane's face was white beneath her powder. "You gave those willingly." "Correct. Which is why I am not claiming every amount as debt. Some were gifts, some were payments made under written reimbursement promises, some were business expenses. Some were transfers requested under false representations. My lawyer will separate them." Adrian looked up. "False representations?" I met his eyes. "You told me the foundation's operating account was temporarily frozen pending audit. It was not. You told me your mother's private care had to stay outside family accounts for tax reasons. That was not accurate. You told me Vivian's loan would be repaid after her store insurance claim. There was no claim." Vivian slammed her palm on the table. "You bitch," Adrian snapped. "Vivian." I did not blink. In the past, that word would have made me shake. Now it sounded like proof. Diane's voice went cold. "What do you want?" "My belongings returned. My creative work removed from any campaign unless a licensing agreement is signed. All public statements corrected. All direct contact through counsel, and repayment for documented reimbursable expenses." Celeste whispered. "This feels cruel." I turned to her. "No, cruel is letting another woman build the stage, then walking onto it and calling her unstable." Her eyes filled. Adrian leaned toward me. "Do not attack her." I smiled a little. Even now, even with the numbers in his hand, still her, that was good. Clarity should not arrive halfway, it should arrive complete. "I am not attacking her," I said. "I am itemizing." Diane sat slowly. For the first time since I had known her, she looked older than her jewels. Adrian pushed the paper away. "We can resolve this privately." You brought documents to dinner. You brought Celeste to our breakup." His jaw clenched. Silence. Then Celeste stood. "I cannot sit here and be blamed for money I knew nothing about." I looked at her. "Did you know the Restoration Future's visual identity was mine?" She hesitated, a tiny pause, too tiny for most people. "Not for me." Adrian looked at her. "Celeste." She recovered. "I knew Grace had helped." "Helped," I repeated. The word had followed women for centuries. Helped, assisted, supported, inspired, never built. I opened the second folder. Inside were printed emails from Adrian's foundation team asking me for final files, drafts with my metadata, concept boards signed Monroe Studio, messages where Adrian wrote, "I know we are not formalizing the licensing yet. Trust me. After the gala, we will settle everything." I placed them on the table. I trusted you, I said. Adrian looked at the papers, then at me. For once, he did not have an answer. My phone buzzed. Marin, I answered on speaker. Grace, she said. I found something in the export you sent. Everyone listened. What kind of something? I asked. A message thread between Adrian and his former chief of staff from 2 years ago. It references Celeste and you. I am forwarding the screenshot now. Adrian went rigid a second later. My phone lit. I read the message. Then I looked at him. In the thread, his chief of staff had written, "Does Grace know Celeste might come back for the Paris board position?" Adrian had replied, "No, and do not mention Celeste around her. Grace is not Celeste. But for now she keeps things stable. For now, stable, not loved, useful." The table blurred for a second, not from tears but from the force of an old wound finally receiving its correct name. I turned the phone so the others could see. Diane closed her eyes. Vivian stopped moving. Celeste's face went blank. Adrian stood. That was taken out of context. I nodded once. "Then you can explain it to my lawyer." I gathered my folders. No one stopped me this time at the door. Adrian followed. "Grace," I paused without turning. "I was in a bad place then. So was I. I cared about you." I looked back. He seemed almost sincere. That hurt more than cruelty. Cruelty was easier to leave. Half-truths had hooks. "I know," I said. "That was the problem. You cared just enough to keep taking, not enough to stop." Then I left the Vale townhouse with my documents, my recording, and the last piece of illusion folded neatly into evidence. Outside, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number sent a photo. Celeste, in the penthouse living room, my penthouse mug in her hand, my mother's archived design box open on the table beside her. Under the photo, one sentence appeared: "You should have taken what mattered when you had the chance." For a moment, I stopped breathing, not because of Celeste, because of the box. My mother's archive box was dark green, leather-edged, and older than I was. It held sketches, paper samples, hand-painted type studies, and original concept drafts she made for a private exhibition that never launched before she died. When I moved into Adrian's penthouse, I brought it with me because I still believed the safest place for precious things was near the man I loved. I had been wrong about many things. That mistake was the one I could not forgive. I called Nina first. "Did you pack the green archive box?" "No," she said immediately. "You told me to take all Monroe studio materials from the closet and office. There was no green box. It is in the penthouse." "Grace, I know, who sent the photo. Unknown number, Celeste, or someone wanting me to think so." Nina cursed softly. "What do you want to do?" I looked at the photo again. Celeste's hand rested on the lid like she had already claimed it in my past life. I never knew how she rebuilt her reputation so quickly after returning from Paris. Within months, she became the face of Vale Foundation's Restoration Futures campaign. Critics praised her for reviving forgotten female artists. I remembered staring at one poster until my eyes burned because the typography looked like my mother's hand. Back then, I told myself grief made me paranoid. Now I understood. The theft had started before I even left the relationship. "I want the building access logs," I said. "I want the penthouse camera footage. And I want to file a police report if anything is missing." "Good," Nina said. Finally, I forwarded the photo to Marin. Her response came in less than a minute. "Do not contact Celeste. Do not contact Adrian except through counsel. Send formal demand for immediate return of archive materials. Request preservation of surveillance. I will draft." Then another message. "Did you ever give Celeste permission to access Monroe studio materials?" "No." "Did Adrian have permission to license or transfer them?" "No." "Good." That word steadied me. Good. Painful did not mean helpless. Violation did not mean defeat. Evidence had a grammar. I was learning to speak it. At 9 the next morning, Vale PR made the first public move. A lifestyle site published an exclusive about Adrian and Celeste's reunion. The headline called it a love interrupted by duty. It described Celeste's years in Paris, Adrian's loyalty, and the painful but necessary end of a relationship formed during a period of grief. I read the article with coffee in one hand and a highlighter in the other. Grace Monroe was mentioned twice, once as a former fiancé, once as a family friend whose affection for Adrian reportedly deepened beyond what he was able to return. I highlighted that sentence. Nina, sitting across from me at the studio table, looked murderous. "They are making you sound delusional." "Yes. Why are you highlighting? Defamation file. This is why I love you and fear you." I kept reading. The article ended with a quote from an unnamed source close to Celeste. "Celeste hopes everyone involved can heal with dignity, but she has been distressed by attempts to punish Adrian's family financially." I highlighted that too. Then my phone rang. "Adrian." I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, the transcript appeared. "Grace, this is getting out of hand. I did not authorize every word in that article. Celeste is overwhelmed. My mother is upset. Please do not escalate this. We can meet privately today. I know you are hurt. But threatening legal action over campaign materials and family support payments will make you look vindictive. I saved the voicemail. Nina stared at me. Does he hear himself? No. Do you still love him? The question landed softly, which made it more dangerous. I looked toward the north windows outside. Delivery trucks moved through the wet street. The city looked ordinary. That felt unfair. A woman could be reborn from a life of humiliation, and the coffee shop next door would still forget her oat milk. Yes, I said. Nina's expression changed. I continued, but not more than I want to live. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. That afternoon, Marin sent formal notices, one to Adrian, one to Vale Heritage Group, one to Celeste Whitmore. The letters were precise. They requested preservation of evidence, return of Monroe studio materials, cessation of defamatory statements, suspension of any campaign using Grace Monroe's or Monroe Studios' creative work, and written confirmation that no physical or digital copies of the archive had been made. At 4, Adrian finally came to the studio. He did not knock. He still had the old key. The alarm screamed the second he opened the door. I stood behind the work table while the sound split the room. Adrian froze in the entryway, one hand on the door. The alarm company called. I answered. Yes, this is Grace Monroe, an authorized entry. No, do not dispatch police yet. I know the person. I will handle it. Adrian stared at me. I hung up. Your key no longer works without a code, I said. I did not think you would change the alarm. I did not think you would enter without permission after receiving a legal notice. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. He looked tired again. This time, not elegantly. There were shadows under his eyes, and his coat was unbuttoned. Grace, what are you doing? Standing in my studio. You know what I mean. No, I am done translating you. He flinched slightly. Good, he had always depended on translation. When he forgot dinner, I translated it as stress. When he kept Celeste's letters, I translated it as grief. When he kissed me with his eyes closed and whispered a name he swallowed halfway through, I translated it as pain. Never again. Adrian approached the table. The archive box was delivered to the penthouse by mistake. No, it was already there. I will return it. When? Tonight, untouched. His jaw moved. I do not know what Celeste looked at. There it was. Not what happened. What Celeste looked at. Why was she in the penthouse? She needed somewhere private. The press found her hotel. Your first instinct was to put her in the apartment I helped pay for. You moved out. I was moved out publicly. He exhaled. Fine. I handled it badly. That was the first confession he offered. Small, safe, useless. I waited. He looked around the studio. His gaze stopped on the uncovered canvas near the wall. It was one of mine, unfinished, a woman without a face standing before an open door. I forgot how much time you spent here, he said. No, you disliked it. I never disliked it. You said the neighborhood smelled like solvents and rain. I was joking. You said my clients made me look small. I wanted more for you. No, I said, you wanted me available. His eyes returned to mine for a second. The room held the shape of what we might have been if truth had arrived before damage. Then my phone buzzed. Marin, I answered. We have a problem, she said. Adrian looked at the phone. What problem? Marin's voice was calm. Celeste's team has submitted preliminary campaign materials to 3 outlets. The visual direction appears substantially similar to Monroe archive samples you sent me this morning. I closed my eyes once. Adrian whispered. No, Marin continued. One image includes a hand-rendered title treatment matching your mother's unpublished Restoration Women concept. I have time-stamped comparisons. Adrian took out his phone. She would not do that. I opened my eyes. Wouldn't she? He looked at me like I had struck him. Grace, stop. Celeste is not malicious. Maybe not. Maybe she simply grew used to people calling her inspiration when she took from women who did the work. His face hardened. You do not know her. I know what she is holding. He began typing. Probably to Celeste. Probably to ask for an explanation gently enough not to bruise her. I watched him and felt the last fragile thread pull thin. Even now, he needed proof against her. He had needed none against me. That was the difference between a beloved woman and a useful one. I said. Leave. He looked up. Grace. Leave before I let the alarm company classify this as trespassing. You would do that to me. You did worse to me without asking. He stared at me, then he left, not angrily, not apologetically, like a man walking out of a room that no longer obeyed him. That night, Celeste cried on camera, not openly, not on her own page. She was too polished for that. The video appeared through a culture influencer known for accidentally capturing private moments at public places. Celeste sat in a cafe garden, eyes wet, whispering to a friend, "I came home because I thought enough time had passed. I never imagined someone would hate me for being loved." The clip went viral within hours. By midnight, my inbox filled with messages: homewrecker, gold digger, obsessed, let him be happy, you were the placeholder, that last one should have hurt most, it did not, a placeholder did not own the page. The next morning, I posted nothing. Instead, I went to the police precinct with Marin. We did not make dramatic accusations, we filed a report regarding potential theft of intellectual property and unauthorized access to physical archival materials. We submitted the anonymous photo, formal notice, proof of ownership, and time-stamped comparisons. The officer at the desk looked bored until Marin said, "The materials are tied to a foundation campaign with six-figure sponsorships." Then he looked less bored. Money had a way of making women's pain legible. After the report, I visited the penthouse lobby, not upstairs, the lobby. Marin had requested access logs. The building manager, who had always called me Mrs. Vale before I corrected him, looked deeply uncomfortable. "Miss Monroe," he said, "Mr. Vale did not authorize release. I am not asking for his authorization. I am requesting records of access connected to my property, and my attorney has already sent preservation notice." Marin slid a letter across the desk. The manager swallowed. 20 minutes later, we had a printout. Celeste entered the penthouse at 8:42 p.m. The night after the gala. Adrian entered at 9:17. Celeste left at 11:56 with one large portfolio case. Adrian did not leave until after midnight. I looked at the record. Marin looked at me. "Do you want a moment?" "No, pain could wait, strategy could not." We requested lobby footage next. The manager resisted. Marin smiled. It was not a friendly smile. By evening, we had enough, not everything, enough. Celeste leaving the building with my mother's portfolio case, Adrian beside her, not stopping her, holding the elevator door. That was the image that finally broke something open in me, not because he helped her steal, because he did it gently. He had looked at that case and either known or chosen not to know. Both were unforgivable. The next day, Adrian called Marin. She forwarded me the summary. He claimed misunderstanding. He would return materials. He requested a private meeting. He urged restraint. He denied authorizing defamatory media narratives. He asked that I not harm Celeste's reputation during a vulnerable time. A vulnerable time. I thought of my past self kneeling on a parking garage floor. Then I opened my laptop and drafted a statement, not a confession, not a rant, a boundary. Monroe Studio has been made aware of public narratives and campaign materials that misrepresent the ownership and origin of certain creative works. We have initiated appropriate legal steps to protect archival material belonging to the late Elaine Monroe and Monroe Studio. We will not comment on private relationships. We will, however, correct false claims regarding our work, finances, or conduct. Marin approved it. Nina posted it through the studio account. Within an hour, Civic Frame requested comment, then Art Ledger, then one of Vale Foundation's sponsors. At 3, Adrian arrived again. This time, he knocked. I did not open the door. I spoke through the intercom. "Yes." His face appeared on the small security screen. He looked pale. "Grace, please, state your business." He closed his eyes briefly. "Celeste says she thought the archive was part of the foundation materials. She carried it out of your penthouse after receiving legal notice. She panicked. Thieves often do." His eyes opened. "Do not call her that." I said nothing. He put one hand against the doorframe. "I am trying to fix this." "No, you are trying to keep me quiet without admitting what happened. That is not fair." The laugh that escaped me was quiet and cold. "Fair?" He flinched. "Adrian, when you announced our breakup, you did not say, 'Grace loved me, supported me, stood beside me, and I failed her.' You called me confused. When your family took my money, no one called that unfair. When Celeste sat in my chair and lifted my mother's archive, you called it panic. Fairness is not your language. It is just the word you use when consequences reach you." He stared at me through a screen no wider than my palm. For the first time, he looked small. "Tell me what you want." He said. "I already did. Besides money, there it is." His face tightened. "I did not mean it like that. You always mean it like that. You think if my pain has numbers attached, it becomes ugly. But you had no problem letting my love have invoices attached." He looked away. Behind him, a taxi passed. Life continued around his regret. "I will issue a correction," he said. "No, your legal team will negotiate the wording with mine. Grace, goodbye." I ended the intercom. An hour later, Nina burst into the studio holding her laptop. "Please tell me you are sitting." "I am standing." "Sit anyway." She turned the laptop toward me. A photo from Vale Foundation's upcoming charity auction had just gone live. Adrian and Celeste stood together in formal black. Her hand rested on his chest. On her finger was my engagement ring. The oval diamond caught the light beautifully. The caption read, "A new chapter for a love that came home." For a second, the studio disappeared. I was back in my past life, standing outside a jewelry store window in the rain, seeing that ring on Celeste's hand after Adrian told me he had returned it to the jeweler. I remembered pressing my bare finger into my palm until I bled. I remembered thinking, even my grief has been resized for her. Nina whispered, "Grace." I zoomed in on the photo. There, on the inside edge barely visible because of the angle, was the shadow of the engraving, AV to GM always. I took a screenshot. Then I sent it to Marin. Her reply came quickly, "Do not react emotionally." I typed back, "I am not." Then I opened the folder marked ring, receipt, insurance appraisal, engraving, photograph, gala recording, photo of Celeste wearing it. Adrian had wanted a clean love story. I now had the dirtiest symbol imaginable. The auction was supposed to save them. Vale Foundation's Restoration Futures Gala had been planned for months, and I knew every inch of it because I had built the campaign before Celeste returned to wear the praise. The theme was legacy. The donor wall used a typography system adapted from my mother's unpublished sketches. The invitation copy had been mine, the sponsor decks, the stage layout, the archival display concept, the lighting notes, the catalog structure, even the order of speeches had passed through my hands. In my past life, I watched Celeste stand under that title and accept applause for bringing a forgotten feminine hand back into the conversation. My mother's hand, my labor, their applause. This life. I arrived with a lawyer, a black dress, and no invitation. Invitations were for guests. I was evidence. The gala was held at the Ashford Museum atrium, glass ceiling, white stone, tall banners printed with Restoration Futures in a hand-rendered font my mother drew 22 years earlier. Seeing it enlarged above the entrance made my chest tighten. Marin stopped beside me. "You can still let me handle the legal portion quietly." I looked at the banner. "No." She nodded once. Nina adjusted the small microphone clipped inside my dress. "Not for performance, for protection. Remember," Nina said. "Short sentences. No speeches unless you want me to cry and commit a felony." I almost smiled. I remember. Inside, the room shimmered with money pretending to be conscience. Donors held champagne. Journalists murmured near the press riser. Museum trustees smiled with careful hunger. Vale staff moved too quickly, the way people did when disaster had been predicted but not prevented. Adrian saw me first. He was near the stage, speaking to a silver-haired sponsor. His eyes found mine, and the polite expression slid off his face. Then Celeste turned. She wore ivory, not red now, ivory, soft and bridal, with my ring on her hand. Of course, the message was obvious. Red had announced return. Ivory announced replacement. Adrian came toward me before Diane could stop him. "You should not be here," he said. "I agree, my work should not be here either." His eyes flicked to Marin. "This is a charitable event, then everyone should appreciate transparency. Grace, do not do this tonight." "Why?" "Because cameras are here. Because this will hurt people who do not deserve it." I looked past him at Celeste. She was already speaking to a journalist, one hand lifted just enough for the diamond to catch light. "Too late," I said. Diane arrived, rigid with fury. "You are not on the guest list." Marin handed her a letter. Diane did not take it. Marin smiled. "You will want to." Diane took it. Her face changed as she read, "Preservation demand, copyright claim, notice of disputed ownership, cease and desist regarding campaign display materials, request for immediate correction." "This is absurd," Diane whispered. "No," I said. Absurd was using my mother's designs as decor while calling me unstable in the press. Vivian appeared behind her mother, eyes darting between us. She looked less arrogant tonight. The internet had started asking questions about the money, not loudly enough to ruin them, loudly enough to make them sweat. Adrian lowered his voice. "I told you I would fix the archive issue. You returned the box with 3 folders missing." He paled. "I did not know that." "No, you did not ask." Celeste joined us then. Her smile was soft, wounded. "Camera ready, Grace," she said. "I wish you had come to me privately." I looked at the ring. "So do I." Then I could have asked why you are wearing my engagement ring before photographers did. The smile froze. A photographer nearby turned. Adrian said, "Grace," I lifted my voice just enough. "Did you know it still has my initials inside, Celeste?" The closest conversations stopped. Celeste's hand dropped. Too late. The photographer had already captured it. Diane hissed, "Enough." But enough had arrived 3 years late. I opened my clutch and removed a small envelope. Inside were 3 photographs. The ring at purchase, the ring on my hand after Adrian proposed, the engraving magnified, AV to GM. Always I held them out. Celeste did not take them. Adrian did. His face shifted as if he had forgotten the engraving existed. That hurt, unexpectedly. He had forgotten even the lie. You told me you returned it to the jeweler. I said. He said nothing, Celeste whispered. Adrian said it was a family ring. A sound moved through the nearby guests, not loud enough. Adrian looked at her. I never said that. She turned those wet eyes on him. You said it had history. I almost laughed. It did, just not the kind she wanted. Marin stepped forward. Miss Whitmore, whether or not you knew, continued public use of the ring in promotional material after notice may become relevant to our claim regarding misrepresentation and harassment. Celeste's face hardened for half a second. There she was, not the moon, the woman behind the light. You cannot own every object Adrian touched, she said. No, I said, only the ones bought for me, engraved for me, insured under my name, and used to humiliate me. A journalist stepped closer. Miss Monroe, are you saying the foundation used your intellectual property without permission? Adrian turned sharply. No comment. I looked at the journalist. My attorney will provide a statement. Marin already had one. That was the thing about preparation. It made drama unnecessary before Adrian could block us. Nina moved to the press table and handed out printed packets. Not thick, not overwhelming, just enough. A timeline, ownership documents, screenshots of metadata, the building access log showing Celeste leaving with the archive case. Before and after comparisons of Elaine Monroe's unpublished work and the Restoration Futures campaign material, bank records showing my payments toward foundation expenses marked as reimbursable, and a transcript from Adrian's recorded gala statement calling me confused, contrasted with his private message saying I kept things stable, no sobbing, no name-calling, just the architecture of exploitation. The room began to change. That was the only way to describe it. People did not gasp all at once. They adjusted. Their eyes moved from me to Celeste. From Celeste to Adrian, from Adrian to the banners above us. A museum trustee whispered to another. A sponsor took out his phone. Diane read the packet with the expression of a woman watching wallpaper catch fire. Celeste stepped back. This is manipulated, Marin answered. Then you are welcome to dispute it through counsel. Celeste looked at Adrian. This was the moment, in another story, when the man finally saw the truth and defended the woman he had wronged. Adrian did look at me, but he did not defend me. Not first. He turned to Celeste and whispered, tell me you did not take those folders. Her face crumpled. That was answer enough. He closed his eyes for a second. I saw the collapse of a myth. I thought it would satisfy me more. It did not. Maybe because I understood then that Adrian's love for Celeste had never been as deep as my pain. He loved an idea that made him feel loyal, tragic, noble. He did not know her any more than he had known me. He only knew what women gave him. Celeste recovered fast. I was trying to help, she said, voice trembling. The foundation needed a story. You were all under pressure. Grace had walked away and threatened everything. I walked away after being publicly discarded. I said. She turned on me. You always do that. You stand there so calm and make everyone else look cruel. No, I stand here calm because everyone already was. The words landed harder than shouting. Adrian opened his eyes. Celeste, he said, did you send the photo? She did not answer. Did you leak the cafe video? Silence. Diane whispered. Celeste's tears vanished. You all wanted me back, she said. Do not act innocent now. You wanted the story. You wanted the donors. You wanted Adrian's tragic first love to return and make the foundation relevant. Grace was inconvenient because she had receipts. There it was. The truth did not arrive clean. It came out mean, cornered, and useful. Several people heard, several phones recorded. Adrian looked sick. I felt nothing dramatic, no triumphal music, no final heartbreak. Just a door closing somewhere inside me with a firm, ordinary click. The museum director approached with 2 security staff and the expression of a man calculating liability. Mr. Vale, he said quietly, we need to pause the program. Diane turned. Absolutely not, Marin said. That would be wise. The director looked at the banners again. My mother's letters hung over his head. Pause the program. He told the staff. The announcement went out 5 minutes later due to a rights dispute concerning campaign materials. The evening's formal presentation would be delayed, not cancelled. Institutions loved soft words, but donors understood. Sponsors began leaving, journalists began calling editors. Celeste disappeared toward the restroom, then attempted the side exit. Nina filmed her removing the ring and placing it in Adrian's hand like it burned. Adrian stood alone near the stage. The banners still hung above him. Restoration Futures, my mother's stolen letters, his ruined love story. I walked toward the display wall where one of Elaine Monroe's adapted sketches had been enlarged without permission. I touched the edge of the panel. In my past life, I had stood in this same room behind a column and watched Celeste receive Applause tonight. The room watched me. I turned to the museum director. Take them down. He hesitated. Marin said. Now. They took them down one by one. The banners lowered, fabric folded, light shifted. The room lost its false skin. Adrian came to stand beside me, not too close. I did not know the work was your mother's, he said. I told you about it. His face tightened. You told me, twice, once in the penthouse kitchen, once in your car outside Westbridge. You were reading messages from Celeste. He looked away. Memory had returned to him too late to be useful. I am sorry, he said. I looked at the workers carrying away the banners. For which part? He swallowed. All of it. That is too easy. His voice broke slightly. Grace. I finally looked at him. This was the man I had loved, not a monster. That would have been simpler. He was a weak man with beautiful manners, selfish grief, and enough tenderness to be dangerous. He had not set out to destroy me. He had simply placed his comfort first every time, and let destruction become the cost other people paid. You do not get to be sorry in general, I said. You need to be specific where it matters. With my lawyer, in writing, publicly. He nodded slowly. I will. Good. I turned to leave. He reached for me, then stopped before touching my wrist. At least he had learned that. Did you ever love me? He asked. The question was so late it almost seemed cruel. I thought about lying. Then I chose mercy, but not the kind he wanted. Yes, I said. More than you deserved. Less than I needed to survive. His face crumpled. I left him there, outside the museum. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted my name. I gave one sentence. Monroe Studio will protect its work, its history, and its people. That was all. No tears, no accusations. The documents would speak. By midnight, the story had turned. Not completely. Public opinion was never clean. Some people still called me bitter. Some called Celeste desperate. Some called Adrian careless. Some asked why a woman always needed records to prove she had been harmed. But the sponsors suspended support. The museum announced an internal review. Vale Foundation removed campaign images from its website. Celeste deleted her cafe video. The ring photo vanished from the auction page. At 1 in the morning, I sat on the studio floor with Nina, eating takeout noodles from paper containers while rain tapped the windows. Are you okay? She asked. No. Good answer. I think I wanted tonight to make it stop hurting. Did it? I looked at my phone. Adrian had sent one message. I know now. Please let me see you. I powered the phone off. No, I said, but it made the hurt belong to the past. Nina leaned her head against my shoulder for a while. We sat in silence. Then someone knocked on the studio door. Not a polite knock, a desperate one. Nina lifted her head. Do not tell me. I already knew through the security screen. Adrian stood in the rain without an umbrella. His hair was soaked. His coat clung to his shoulders. The man who once told me public emotion was embarrassing now looked like grief had dragged him through the street. Grace, he said into the intercom. Please, I made a mistake. I did not answer. He looked directly into the camera. I thought she was the one I lost, but it was you. It was always you. In my past life, those words would have resurrected me. In this one, they arrived at a locked door. I let Adrian stand in the rain for 7 minutes, not because I wanted him to suffer, because I needed to know whether any part of me would run to him. 7 minutes was long enough for old muscle memory to wake, long enough to remember his favorite tea, the towel drawer in the penthouse, the way his voice grew hoarse when he was truly exhausted, long enough to see the man I loved looking ruined on a screen and feel the old instinct rise, open the door, comfort him, translate his pain, save him from what he did. I sat still until the instinct passed. Then I pressed the intercom. Go home, Adrian. His eyes lifted, rain moved down his face like tears he had not earned. Please let me explain. No, I ended things with Celeste. That is not my concern. It should have been you. I know that now. I looked at the small black and white image of him in my past life. I had begged for that sentence in this life. It sounded like a bill delivered after the house burned down. No, I said, you know that you lost control. That is not the same as love. He flinched. Grace, I was wrong. Yes, I will fix everything. You will respond to my attorney. I am not talking about money. I am. His expression twisted. How can you make this about money? There he was still, even in the rain, even after public exposure, even after Celeste's mask cracked. He reached for the old weapon. I felt something inside me settle. Because money is how you kept score while pretending it was love, I said, because every time I paid, you called me generous. Every time I asked for respect, you called me emotional. Because my work, my time, my mother's legacy, and my body standing beside you all had value before you made them sentimental enough to steal. He stared at me. I never meant to steal from you. No, you meant to receive without counting. That silenced him. I continued. The door stays closed. Go home. Do you hate me? I almost answered too quickly. Instead, I gave the truth room. No, I said, I am done organizing my life around you. That is not hate, it is absence. I ended the intercom. He stayed another minute. Then he left. The next morning, the legal process began properly, not dramatically, no shouting, no late-night revelations, just emails, red lines, sworn statements, calendar holds, draft agreements, and men in expensive suits discovering that emotional damage became harder to dismiss when attached to invoices and copyright claims. Vale Heritage Group's legal team tried 3 positions. First, they claimed the payments were gifts. Marin responded with messages in which Adrian promised reimbursement after specific liquidity events. Second, they claimed the campaign materials were independently developed. Marin sent metadata, sketches, access logs, and side-by-side comparisons. Third, they claimed public correction would create unnecessary reputational harm. I personally dictated the reply. Reputational harm caused by truth is not unnecessary. It is overdue. Marin read it and said, "You are becoming very expensive to underestimate." I took it as a compliment. Celeste tried to leave New York. That was what Nina heard through a friend at Art Ledger. A ticket to Paris, a sudden retreat, a statement about mental health and privacy. I did not stop her. Marin did, not physically, legally. The preservation notice and pending claim made her departure inconvenient. Sponsors who had once wanted her tragic return now wanted distance. The gallery that planned to host her comeback exhibition postponed indefinitely. One museum consultant gave an anonymous quote saying Celeste's archival inspiration raised ethical concerns. Ethical concerns, another soft phrase, still useful. Adrian's consequences were quieter but deeper. 3 board members requested an emergency review of Vale Foundation governance. The museum suspended partnership. Sponsors demanded accounting for campaign funds. Diane's private medical provider called about updated payment arrangements, and this time the Vale family had to handle the bill themselves. Vivian sent me one message, "You ruined us." I forwarded it to Marin, then I blocked her. Diane sent none. That was wise. 2 weeks after the auction, we met for mediation in a private legal office downtown. I wore grey, not soft grey, steel grey. Adrian was already there when I arrived. He stood as I entered. His hair was neatly combed, his suit perfect, his face thinner than before. He looked like the air again, almost. Then he saw me, and the mask cracked. "Grace." I sat across from him, not beside him. Marin sat at my right. Adrian's attorney sat at his left, a mediator with kind eyes and no patience opened the session. We discussed assets first. The reimbursable payments would be repaid in structured installments with interest below what Marin wanted and above what Adrian's team could comfortably swallow. The penthouse contribution would be recognized as a debt, not equity. Because my name was not on the deed, that still stung. But I accepted it. I had learned the difference between victory and repair. The foundation would pay a licensing penalty for unauthorized preliminary use of Monroe studio work. All campaign materials derived from Elaine Monroe's archive would be destroyed or transferred to us. Public correction would be issued by Vale Foundation and Adrian personally. Non-disparagement clauses would apply to both sides. But carve-outs allowed truthful statements in legal, professional, or journalistic contexts. Marin fought hard for that. I signed only after reading every word. Then came personal property. My archive folders returned, my books returned, my ceramics returned, my mother's portfolio case damaged. Adrian slid a photograph across the table. "I am sorry," he said. The clasp broke when Celeste's assistant transported it. His attorney looked uncomfortable. He had probably advised silence. I looked at the photo. The case could be repaired. The original folder contents were intact. My mother's work had survived worse than careless hands. Add restoration cost. I said. Marin wrote it down. Adrian closed his eyes. The mediator cleared her throat. "There is also the matter of the ring." The ring sat in a small evidence envelope between us. Adrian stared at it. I did not. His attorney said, "Mr. Vale is prepared to return the ring to Miss Monroe." "No," I said. Adrian looked up. "I do not want it." The room went still. Marin had expected this. No one else had. Adrian's voice was rough. "Grace, the stone can be sold. The proceeds will go to the Elaine Monroe Archive Fund. The band will be melted." His face changed. "Do not do that. It has my name in it." "I know." "No," I said. "You forgot. That is why we are here." He looked as if I had slapped him. Maybe I had. In the only language left, the mediator gently said, "Mr. Vale, do you object legally?" His attorney answered before he could. "No." Adrian's hands folded on the table. The knuckles whitened. For a moment, I saw him not as the man who broke me, but as the boy he must have been before wealth trained him to receive love badly. a boy who lost his father, loved a girl who left, and mistook longing for loyalty, a boy who grew into a man and used another woman as a bandage. Understanding him did not free him from consequences, it freed me from needing an apology big enough to undo the past. There was none. When the legal portion ended, Adrian asked for 5 minutes alone. Marin looked at me. My choice that mattered in my past life. Everyone decided what I could handle. Adrian decided how much truth I deserved. Diane decided when I should be silent. Celeste decided what parts of my life she could borrow. Even my love decided for me this time. I decided. 5 minutes, I said. Marin left reluctantly. The attorneys and mediator followed. The glass door closed. Adrian and I sat across from each other in a room designed for endings. He looked at me for a long time. I read your old emails, he said. That sounds unwise. The ones you sent about the foundation, the ones I skimmed, the ones where you explained your mother's work. I said nothing. I found the birthday card you wrote me last year. I remembered it. Heavy cream paper. 3 drafts before I wrote the final version. I had told him I believed love could be a place 2 tired people built honestly. He had arrived late to dinner that night because Celeste called from Paris. I never deserved you, he said. No. The direct answer seemed to hurt him more than comfort would have. He looked down. I think I loved you before I knew I did. I almost felt sad for him, almost. No, Adrian, you needed me. You liked being loved by me. Sometimes you felt tenderness. Sometimes you felt guilt. Sometimes you felt peace because I made your life easier. That is not the same as loving me. His eyes were wet now. In 3 years, I had seen him cry once, after finding Celeste's old postcard in a book. I had held him while he cried for another woman. Now he cried for me, and I did not move. Could it become love? He asked. That was the cruelest question because it carried the ghost of all my old hope. Could he change? Maybe. Could he learn? Maybe. Could he love me someday in a way that did not require me to bleed first? Maybe, but a woman's life could not be placed on the altar of a man's potential. Not with me, I said. He covered his mouth with one hand. I will spend the rest of my life regretting this. That belongs to you. Do you not care? I looked at him. I care. That is why I am leaving now instead of staying long enough to hate you. He broke then, not loudly. Adrian Vale did not collapse. He bent forward, shoulders shaking once, then again, as if his body had finally understood what his pride delayed. I stood. He looked up quickly. Grace. No, one word, the first one I should have learned. I opened the door. Marin stood outside, pretending not to have been ready to break it down. Done? She asked. I nodded. Done. 3 months later, Monroe Studio reopened, not as the dusty refuge I fled to after the gala. As a working studio, the floors were refinished, the north windows cleaned. My mother's archive had its own climate-controlled room, funded partly by the first installment from Vale Heritage Group. Nina handled communications. I hired 2 assistants, both young artists who asked direct questions and never apologized for wanting contracts. Our first exhibition was small, original, works and studies from Elaine Monroe and Grace Monroe. I almost named it Not a Substitute. Nina talked me out of it. Too much about him, she said. She was right. Original was about us. The opening night was crowded in a way that made the studio feel warm instead of invaded. Former clients came, new ones too. A museum curator who had once praised Celeste's archival sensitivity stood in front of my mother's sketches for 20 minutes and looked ashamed. Good. Shame could be educational if it arrived before the invoice. Marin came with flowers. Martin wore a suit and pretended he did not tear up. Nina gave a speech even though I begged her not to. Grace Monroe once mistook loyalty for love, she said, lifting her glass. Thankfully, she now charges licensing fees. Everyone laughed. I did too. It felt strange, good strange. Later that night, after the crowd thinned, I found a small envelope at the front desk. No return address. Inside was a note in Adrian's handwriting. I will not come in. I only wanted to say I saw the correction published today. It was not enough, but it was true. I am sorry for making you live in someone else's shadow. You were never a substitute. You were the only real thing in that part of my life. I read it once, then I folded it. Nina watched me from across the room. Are you okay? Yes. What will you do with it? I walked to the archive room, opened the shred bin for discarded drafts, and let the note fall in, not because it meant nothing, because it did not need to become another relic. A week later, the public correction ran in 3 outlets. Vale Foundation acknowledged that Monroe Studio materials had been used in preliminary campaign development without a finalized licensing agreement. Adrian issued a personal statement confirming that his public comments at the gala had mischaracterized the nature of our relationship and my contributions. He did not mention Celeste beyond confirming she no longer held any role with the foundation. Celeste returned to Paris. But not triumphantly. Her comeback exhibition was cancelled, sponsors withdrew. The art world did not exile her entirely, it rarely did, but doors that had opened because of Adrian's name closed when his name became liability. She posted one final statement about healing, privacy, and women being cruel to other women. I did not respond. Diane downsized from private nursing to a more reasonable care plan and sold one of the family's vacation properties. Vivian's boutique closed. She announced a break from social media after old posts mocking me resurfaced beside screenshots of the loan I had given her. Adrian stepped down from Vale Foundation leadership pending governance review. He remained at Vale Heritage Group, but no longer untouchable. Men like him rarely lost everything. That was not the world we lived in. But he lost the story that protected him. He lost the right to be noble in other people's mouths. That mattered. As for me, I learned the shape of ordinary days: coffee before emails, contracts before favors, dinner with Nina on Thursdays, no shared location, no late-night calls that made my stomach drop, no closet full of colors chosen to resemble another woman. Sometimes I still woke from the sound of rain, sometimes I still reached for a phone that was not ringing, sometimes I missed Adrian with an ache so old it felt like weather. But missing someone was not an instruction, love was not a summons. One evening in late spring, I walked past the Grand Lark Hotel. The ballroom windows glowed above the street. Another gala, another story. Women in silk dresses stepped from cars. Men adjusted cuff links. Somewhere inside, champagne waited under gold light. I stopped for a moment. In one life, I had walked out of that hotel broken and run into the rain after a man who had already chosen someone else. In this life, I walked past it with my hands in my coat pockets and my own keys in my bag. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Adrian, I knew without opening it. I deleted it unread, then I blocked the number. Across the street, Monroe Studios windows glowed softly. My name was painted on the glass in clean black letters. Not his, not hers, mine. I crossed when the light changed. Inside the studio, the assistants had left a lamp on by my desk. A new canvas waited near the window. Blank, huge, terrifying. For years, I had been terrified of blankness. A blank evening meant Adrian had not called. A blank expression meant he was thinking of Celeste. A blank future meant I had failed to become loved. Now blankness looked different. It looked like space. I took off my coat, rolled up my sleeves, and opened a jar of paint. The first stroke was dark, the second was brighter. By the third, I was no longer thinking about Adrian. By the fourth, I was no longer thinking about Celeste. By the fifth, I was only thinking about the work outside. Rain began to fall. This time, I did not run into it. I stayed where I was, under my own roof, making something no one could mistake for anyone else's.